us.
Thank you very much, Minister Cox. Good morning, Minister Dial Singh, CMO. It gives me no pleasure to have to attend today's press conference to deal with the first issue that I'm about to talk about, which Minister Dial Singh touched on and which the Honourable Prime Minister referred to very clearly over the weekend. That is the unfortunate behaviour of persons gathering at bars and outside of bars. We had one of the first steps that we took with respect to bars to stop congregation. Remember, this virus spreads by congregation and by contact. So what we're always trying to prevent is congregation and the risk of community spread. What we saw with the first weekend of bars being open, starting really from last week Thursday onto Friday night, Saturday night, and even up to yesterday, has greatly disturbed us. We've sought the advice of our medical public health experts, and we've received the advice. And as Minister Dial Singh alluded to, the Prime Minister himself and myself have conferred, and I'm announcing here today that the regulations will be amended during the course of today. In fact, I've just approved it and we're currently waiting for the Prime Minister's sign-off. Bars will now be allowed to be open from 8 a.m. but will have to close at 8 p.m. This is the first step. A warning was given over the weekend by both the Prime Minister and Minister Dial Singh. We have taken this step to give another opportunity, not so much only to the bar owners and operators, but more so the patrons and the persons going to the bars and congregating on the roads, pavements outside of the bars. So the first step is today we will roll back and bars will now be required to close at 8 p.m. on a daily basis. At 8 a.m. We are reminding persons that the congregation of people inside of these areas, these bars, is limited to 25, but also outside, more importantly in the public spaces, persons are not allowed to gather in groups of more than 25. In my discussions, my daily briefing with the heads of security this morning, and in particular with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the Commissioner of Police and one of the Deputy Commissioners of Police, we had certain discussions, policy directions were given, and you can expect the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to do the necessary enforcement. In the first instance, they will ask bar owners, anyone who has more than 25 inside their establishment and they're not adhering to the Ministry of Health protocols for bars, they will be closed. Those persons who are outside, if they're congregating outside in groups of more than 25 and behaving in manners that give concern for public health and also public order, the police will warn persons. If they don't adhere, the police are authorized to close the various bars and other watering holes. The police have this power in law. When the police believe that there's a public health hazard or they're moving to stop or prevent a breach of the law, and in this case the breach of the law is the congregation of more than 25 persons or the public health measures that they believe there's a risk. The risk is there is still this virus, a deadly virus called COVID-19. The police have been instructed to enforce the law. So they will first of all give a warning, and if necessary they will close down the various establishments that are found to be the genesis, the core of this type of activity of congregating. What we're asking bar owners to consider using is a last call system. So now that you know you have to be shut at 8, by 7:30, take the last orders and understand, not in the typical Trinidad system of everybody rushing at minutes to 8. Get your drinks. People, we don't want to do these things. The bars are providing employment for a very important part of our population. But as we've said as a government from day one, we will take the necessary measures and steps and decisions and be decisive in doing so to protect the rest of the population. Trinidad and Tobago is very fortunate due to the decisions that were taken from us way back as January of this year, and we have prevented thus far, knock on wood, community spread in our country. But the behavior that we've observed taking place over the last 72 plus hours has given us great cause for concern, and today the decision has been taken to roll back. So bars will now be closed until 8 p.m. And a further warning, if we don't see a reversal of the type of behavior that has happened over the last 72 plus hours, the government will not hesitate to do what is necessary based on the advice that we get from our medical experts. Inside of these institutions, these entities falls under the control of the bar owners, so you will be held responsible. Outside, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and on occasions with the assistance of the Defence Force, will not hesitate to disperse the crowds. And we're asking people to please be peaceful. Remember, this is for your own good. The behavior we saw of people congregating one on top of the other, talking loudly, the bodily fluids flying all over the place. We can't stand back and allow this to continue. So this is the first step of rollback that we're taking here today. We also warn restaurants who have bar licenses. Right now, we're allowing you to continue to serve until 10 p.m. But if we see a continuation of behavior, or the behavior moves to these restaurants who have bars inside, we will also roll back on that category of persons. So the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has been asked to enforce the law, and they will do so. And of course, if there's no improvement, the necessary action will be taken. The police will employ their powers, their common law powers, as well as their statutory powers to prevent any breaches of the peace. They have the laws of loitering, persons who are gathered outside. As we've seen, there was a video circulating of what went on in Barataria on Friday night. The police have been instructed and asked to uphold the regulations. This is for the protection of the population. There's the public health regulations, there's the public health ordinance, the laws of loitering, the laws of the police having a duty, a common law duty, to protect persons and to prevent the breaking of the law. I just remind Minister Dayal Singh touched on it a short while ago. In the current regulations, and it will not be changed today when we amend the regulations, parties are prohibited. What we've specifically said is party boats and clubs are not permitted to be open for business. The Commissioner of Police asked me this morning. He said a certain establishment in the west at 1 Woodbrook Place, which is a club, was open on Friday night. I reminded the police that according to the regulations, party boats and clubs are not permitted to be open. So again, remember, with every breach of the regulations, you are susceptible to a $50,000 fine, 6 months imprisonment. We've also gone on to say that public parties or public fetes are not permitted. Of course, public parties, public fetes in private places is captured by this legislation. So we're cautioning persons. We have made sure that is not a loophole. So that is how we're dealing with, in the first instance, the very troubling scenes that we saw over the last week, and in particular over the weekend, with the behavior of persons in their congregation outside of bars. The police service will enforce the law, and they have the full support of the government, who in fact are asking them to continue helping us to protect the population. The second issue I've come here today to discuss is with respect to our borders. As you all are hopefully more than aware right now, and to all of those who are looking on at other areas of the world, they always message afterwards to say they were looking on at the conference. These are the following guidelines. We are bringing back the students from Cuba, or at least offering them the opportunity. They're being granted exemptions to come home, or students who are in Cuba, because there's a flight that is being put on by Caribbean Airlines to assist the Cuban government. So we're using that opportunity to make the offer to our Cuban students and other nationals who are in Cuba to come home. Remember, the balancing factor here is what Minister Dayal Singh just talked about. It is the number of rooms we have, the number of spaces we have for state quarantine, and the limited state supervised quarantine that we're doing. So that limits our numbers that we can bring back at any point in time. We are also reaching out to the students who are in India to tell them that they're being granted exemptions to come home on 2 conditions, or 3 conditions rather. 1, they must indicate to us their flight pattern, how it is, their flight schedule, their itinerary. 2, when it is they expect to get here. And 3, that they must understand that they will be subject to quarantine. I think by now everyone who comes to Trinidad, all our nationals, understand they're going to be subject to the strictest of quarantine measures, but the very professional quarantine measures under the Ministry of Health, the Chief Medical Officer, with the support of National Security. We are also looking at the numbers of other persons who are in the region who have been out there and stranded for the last few weeks and months. We are we have the dates that these people requested exemptions to come in. So we're going to do some exercises. I will be discussing with Caribbean Airlines how to carry out those exercises, or other private charter planes, to get back other persons in the Caribbean area as the next wave of persons we're bringing home. I am putting down a caution now. The Caribbean and some of our CARICOM sister countries are not going to be permitted as jumping points. Right now we have persons, there's a particular group of people, you know, we granted them exemptions. They flew from the United States to another Caribbean island, and they're waiting there to then jump across. We are not permitting other Caribbean islands that have taken decisions to open up their borders to international travel to be used as jumping points, as launching pads into Trinidad and Tobago. I think by now the population, the 1.4 million of us here in Trinidad, understand the benefit of the protection that the government has offered and succeeded so far in, by protecting our borders and keeping our borders closed. So we're not going to be allowing persons who think they can just jump on flights, get there, and then come across to Trinidad through that route. We are also looking at our citizens, our nationals who are out in the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom as the next big groups, and we're working those numbers. I'm collaborating with the Ministry of Health to work out the numbers and to see if there's any room for expansion. So what we will be doing is contacting people. We have a sort of priority listing system, and we'll be offering those persons, telling them, look, we're prepared to grant exemption. There will be an offer for state supervised quarantine, because some of them are in a position where they can pay for hotel supervised quarantine, and we're looking to expand that facility a little bit. And then that allows us, those of our nationals who we can take into the state quarantine, who will not be required to pay for their quarantine. It allows us to have a broader group. We are asking, we know how difficult it is for every single citizen, all of us, including the Prime Minister, Minister of Communication, Minister of Health, myself, and cabinet colleagues. We are all affected. We all have family members who are outside of Trinidad and Tobago that we continue to be worried about. We understand how difficult it is for our citizens who went out and found themselves stranded with the closure of borders and then the global pandemic. All I can do is plead with you to continue to be patient. We are getting there. It is a very slow process based on the numbers that we can manage with the parallel healthcare system. This is a guiding factor. How many numbers can we manage with our parallel healthcare system? And that is the process that is currently undergoing. So we're looking to see if we can expand our quarantine facilities. What we're doing is, you all would have heard about the cruise ship and what the decisions taken yesterday. The chief medical officer touched on it a short while ago. We're decanting those nationals, so they will be on Trinidad soil by tomorrow afternoon as we get them ready for another round of testing. This is not because we're looking at any group or we're victimizing any group. Quite the contrary. We were very concerned, so we took the decision a few weeks ago to allow the cruise ship workers to come in. But of course, difficulties have now presented themselves, and it would have been irresponsible of the government, with what presented itself to us on Friday and Saturday with some positive cases, for us not to take that last precautionary step and just do another round of testing with with our nationals on the Enchantment of the Seas ship. They are going to be coming off the ship tomorrow. We will take them into facilities that we're currently preparing. We will do a testing that will be under the Ministry of Health and the Chief Medical Officer, hopefully by Thursday of this week. And once everything goes well and everyone is negative, or those who are negative, the CMO will then take a professional decision. Bear with us for these few more days. Could you all imagine the disaster that would have been if persons came off, went into the community, and then presented positive? We cannot pull it back once there's community spread, and we would be in difficult positions like we're seeing some of the most sophisticated countries in the world. Your government has been and will continue to take the necessary scientific and medical public health advice from our experts that will guide us. Thank you very much.